Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and we are in the aftermath, the wake of the 49ers 24-24 preseason finale tie against the Las Vegas Raiders, and what was a pretty entertaining preseason finale. There was some ups, there was some downs, there was a lot of good takeaways from this game, some unfortunate injuries that happened, but ultimately, it was the final opportunity for players on the roster bubble to either raise their stock or unfortunately watch their stock plummet to a point where they maybe not be on the roster come Tuesday's cut down day. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave that review. And let's dive into the final edition, the final preseason edition of Stock Up, Stock Down for the 2024 season. I want to quickly start off by stating just how good Brock Purdy was in this game. I know there was an interception late, which actually ended his preseason this year. It was a throw to Deebo Samuel where the offensive line, mainly Colton McKivitz, a lot of pressure. Deebo, because he isn't the best route runner, couldn't separate from the cornerback, which was the third string Raiders defense, mind you, so not a great look. Definitely had me wanting Brandon Aiyuk being signed as quickly as possible, but I digress. Tip ball leads to a pick, so not the greatest ending to Brock Purdy's preseason, but a rather strong performance. If you go back and watch the first couple of drives he had before the interception, he was slinging that ball around left and right. He was scrambling for 10 plus yards. Had a deep shot to George Kittle over the middle, layered over a linebacker, which was perfectly placed while he was getting hit in the process. So really great stuff. He had a play action bootleg to Chris Conley on the run, which I wish the NFL Twitter account would use that highlight and praise Brock Purdy over Caleb Williams at times. Although both quarterbacks definitely deserve their praise. But Purdy was great in the pocket in this game, showed pocket presence, and not having Trent Williams, not having Aaron Banks, it definitely showed me, although there wasn't much doubt, definitely showed me that at least against a third string defense, Brock Purdy and this offense without Brandon Aiyuk can still move the football better than most in the NFL. Really good stuff from Brock Purdy. I thought, he was clearly the strongest quarterback at play, looked the most comfortable, and ultimately I walked away with a top 10 quarterback ranking I had coming into this year cemented. It's a meaningless game, but in the season where you have to win a Super Bowl, and it's been a rather tumultuous offseason, Brock Purdy has been the epitome of consistency. Great to see. Jordan Mason also great in this game. And I guess you can say first stock down, not really a stock down, but a negative of this game was the injuries to Leonard, Floyd, and Yetur Gross-Matos. I didn't see Gross-Matos' injury, but Leonard Floyd's was definitely shown on screen a lot more, definitely got more of the headlines. He is the starter opposite Nick Bosa. He was he was fell on, or Malik Collins fell on his ankle, which twisted his knee. And it was the most unfortunate thing for a player that has played 108 straight games to, in his first preseason action, go down with what could be a not super serious injury, but he could miss a handful of games. Again, we're not sure of the severity of the injury itself, but there was some good signs towards the end of the preseason game. Leonard Floyd on the sideline laughing, talking to Kyle Shanahan. He and Yetur Gross-Matos both came out of the locker room. They haven't got MRIs just yet, but when you see guys that go down with injury come back out laughing, smiling, it makes you believe that the severity, it's not that big of a deal and they're not going to miss too much time, if any at all. But that's in the past. That is also things to look out for in the future. But let's dive into the stock up and stock downs of the preseason finale against the Las Vegas Raiders. And the first stock up, just like last week, where we talked about Jacob Cowing, rookie making his NFL preseason debut. He was phenomenal against the Saints. This week, another rookie, fourth round pick, running back, Isaac Guerendo, was phenomenal. I have been on Isaac Guerendo's case, saying this kid can be special. He just has to stay healthy. Well, he's finally healthy again after missing 3 to 4 weeks with the hamstring injury, made his debut last night. And while there was a little more, or he left a little more wanting in the run game, only having 11 carries for 32 yards at 2.9 yards a carry, it wasn't great. But I will have to say this, that any running back that doesn't play with Trent Williams and Aaron Banks and is going to be behind players like Nick Zakelj and players like Drake Nugent, who are much better in the pass blocking game than run blocking game, I'm not going to, take away part of their performance when I know their performance is hinging on the offensive line doing their job. But Isaac Guerendo, coming into this year, we knew. I said it plenty of times. There was a specific role he could etch out for himself this season. That was the kick returner. Well, in his, I think, second kick return of the 2024 preseason, in his NFL debut, took it 93 yards, almost to the house. He ran 140 total yards when you accumulate the NFL football field distance of how many yards he actually ran. Then you talk about cutting left and cutting right. 140 yards, almost took that thing to the house. I think that was the most explosive play thus far of the NFL preseason, and ultimately, in my opinion, showed that Cody Schrader, Trent Taylor, Ronnie Bell, forget those players. You have Isaac Guerendo, who likely isn't going to play much in the backfield because you have Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason and Elijah Mitchell ahead of him on the depth chart, but he has a role for him. Ultimately, you want a running back that is dynamic, that can move in short yardage, that can evade tackles, back there to give you explosive plays. And if you can have Guerendo back there, you can avoid putting Deebo or McCaffrey and other stars back there. Guerendo can give you something that other people you've tried out in 3 preseason games just simply cannot. Guerendo was phenomenal, a massive stock up, and I wouldn't go this far, but I can guarantee you will see people saying, well, Guerendo looks phenomenal, trade Elijah Mitchell. Again, I wouldn't go that far, but Guerendo certainly showed a lot of promise, at least as the kick returner, getting our first stock up of the preseason finale, which unfortunately brings us to our first stock down of the preseason finale. The tight end position behind George Kittle is kind of I don't want to say lost cause, but it certainly is a massive question mark. Do the Niners need a backup tight end to catch the ball 45 plus times a year? No, they never have. In fact, they should really utilize George Kittle more in playoff games. But if Kittle goes down, they don't really have the insurance. Yes, Eric Saubert's there. He's a vet, journeyman. He's a blocking tight end and has shown more as a receiver than expected of him, knowing his track record really isn't of being a receiver. But behind them is Braden Willis and Cam Latu. And Braden Willis, I think, walked into this year with an edge on the tight end number 3 position. He played in the system for a full year. He had some snaps in the Super Bowl and was called upon late in the season when Ross Dwelley and Charlie Warner went down with injury. It made sense to believe Braden Willis would be not a major factor, but a factor in the tight end competition. And I think for a large portion of the training camp process and a little bit of the preseason, he was in line to be tight end 3, a guarantee. After this game and after the Saints game last week, I'm not entirely sure that he is tight end number 3. I think he has an edge over Cam Latu simply because he's played in the system for a full year. But if Shanahan has any inkling of putting Braden Willis as a backup fullback, or on the off chance Kyle Juszczyk gets hurt, I do not want to see Braden Willis play fullback. He has been terrible, and I understand Charlie Warner was that, Ross Dwelley was that, so you do want to have your tight end with that fullback flexibility, or at least a backfield flexibility. That is not Willis at all. There have been ample opportunities for him to establish himself as a lead blocker on runs, and multiple times has he been bullied out of plays, filled up holes that he's supposed to create for running backs, and ultimately just has not looked like he has the ability to be a fullback or a leading blocker in the backfield. He can't create space. He can't create holes. He's more of a hole filler than a hole opener. That's what she said. But it's not great for a player that is young, mind you, and you hope he can kind of etch out a role for himself. But my question is, what exactly is his role? You hope it's tight end 3. You hope it's a special team role for him, which seems likely. But even then, there was a handful of plays where you said, that's just not an NFL caliber player, which I think is a step back in live action than what we saw in practice in OTAs and training camp. Yes, he had 2 catches for 20 yards. That's great. But when it's 3rd and 1, your offense is driving downfield early. It's an opportunity for Braden Willis, playing with the ones, mind you, playing with Deebo, playing with Brock Purdy, to kind of make himself look like he belongs with the starters. And in this case, maybe had he played well, Kyle Shanahan believes in him more. But Willis has primarily got the first team reps during preseason games, and through 3 games, it's not been great. Going back to this game against the Raiders, it's 3rd and 1. You're marching downfield. Pivotal drive. It's either get the first down and hopefully get a touchdown, which you're inside the red zone at this point, or you fail to get the first down, kick a field goal. Willis false starts, moving them back 5 yards, giving them a 3rd and 6. The next play leads to the Brock Purdy interception. That's not what you want out of your backup tight end. And go back to the Super Bowl. Willis did the exact same thing. Got called for holding on a pivotal play, moves the drive back. I get he's young. You can expect mistakes from young players. If Deebo Samuel did the same thing, he wouldn't get the criticism that Braden Willis does. But for a young player fighting for a roster spot or fighting for a depth chart position as tight end 3, which isn't utilized a lot in San Francisco's offense, but he's young. You hope next year he is your tight end 2. You're looking for the eventual replacement for George Kittle. Willis hasn't really shown that at all, which is fine. He's a 7th round pick, but you want him to show he's viable in case somebody goes down with injury. And Willis hasn't shown that. Again, false starts, missing blocks. He's a fine receiver, but if you want to be a tight end in Kyle Shanahan's system, you have to be able to block. Willis really hasn't shown that in the positions he's been put in, so a massive stock down for tight end Braden Willis. Moving to our next stock up, 2nd week in a row, Jacob Cowing is a stock up. He's young. Draft pick this year. What is there to expect from Jacob Cowing? In my opinion, a very similar expected role to Isaac Guerendo. He's speedy. He's dynamic. That sounds like a kick returner, punt returner specialist while he hopefully grows into a really good receiver. But Jacob Cowing so far has been a much better receiver than return specialist. Now, the punt returning ability is there, but he needs the reps. As a receiver, though, he looks pretty polished. He's a 5-year player in college. It makes sense for him to show early on that he's better than rookies or 3rd stringers. He's done that. 3 catches this week for 39 yards and 1 touchdown. Last week, a massive 38-yard catch from Joshua Dobbs and a massive 19-yard end around. The ability to be a playmaker is there for Jacob Cowing. In this game, unlike Braden Willis, 3rd and 1, gets a false start. 3rd down for Jacob Cowing, gets a slant route, catches the ball that's behind him, mind you, maneuvers his body, catches the ball, gets the first down, then later in the exact same drive, gets the touchdown. A really impressive 2-game outing for Cowing, and in an offense that may not have Brandon Aiyuk, and an offense that is hoping to get back Ricky Pearsall. Jacob Cowing has shown you some promise that he may be able to step in if necessary early and actually give you a little bit of a push and maybe, not miss Ricky Pearsall, who we haven't seen at all during preseason, or if drastic measures have to be taken, maybe he is that backup slot option, or maybe he starts if they move Juwan Jennings to the outside. Now, that's a massive reach by myself, but still, Cowling has shown enough, in my opinion, that if he plays well or if he continues to stay healthy, he's played well enough to, I think, earn Kyle Shanahan's trust early on through 2 preseason games. Moving on to our next stock down, it's a twofer. It is a twofer, and it goes to both tackles yesterday. The first one is starting left tackle Jalen Moore, and I hope I never have to say starting left tackle Jalen Moore ever again. Please, pretty please, get Trent Williams back in the building. I think it'll happen this week, but I certainly hope it happens because they need him desperately. In 44 preseason pass blocking opportunities, Jalen Moore has allowed 6 pressures. Now, 44 snaps and 6 pressures doesn't sound like a lot, but he had 30 pass blocking opportunities last week, gave up 3 pressures. Not great. 1 out of every 10 snaps is a pressure. Not great. Then this week, I think he only had 14 pass blocking opportunities, 3 more pressures. I get he was sick 3 weeks ago, didn't play against the Titans, but the Jalen Moore we saw during training camp has not been the same player we saw or have seen in the preseason. I'm not sure if there's an injury there, not sure if he's sick still, but not a great showing for a player that might actually have to start against the Jets if they do not figure out Trent Williams' contract situation. It's scary. It's terrifying for a team that needs to keep their quarterback upright. In my notes during Brock Purdy's 3-drive stint, I wrote, "Can somebody please block for Brock Purdy?" Jalen Moore was the biggest, I don't know what you want to call him, the biggest culprit of not protecting Brock Purdy. Not a great day. Back-to-back preseason games where I think everybody walks away saying that guy better not be out there in week number 1. The second half of our tackle stock down twofer is Brandon Parker. Brandon Parker is somebody that I never believed was going to make this team, and he does have the inside track into being the backup right tackle, having the most experience at right tackle on the current depth chart. But after yesterday, I said, nope, nada, yikes, put the nail in the coffin to his roster spot opportunity. There was a play in this game where it was third down, or excuse me, it was second down. No, third down. Drives are hard to realize. It was 3rd and 11. Okay, you want to make a big play. Brandon Allen's playing quarterback. Okay, this game is getting kind of tight towards the end. San Francisco wants to extend their drive. It's 3rd and 11. Can you at least give me 7 yards? Give me 8 yards to make it a 4th down and manageable. Maybe you get a field goal. Maybe Kyle Shanahan goes for it on 4th down in a preseason game. What does Brandon Parker do? Slow feet work, doesn't move, doesn't show any agility. Let's say blitzer, that is a defensive back, run right by him, doesn't even get a hand on him, then boom, Brandon Allen gets sacked, ending the drive, making it a massive 4th down and long. You simply cannot do that. I understand that nobody should expect an offensive lineman to be able to keep up with a blitzing defensive end. The issue is, I would believe that and agree with you if the right tackle was blocking an edge rusher. In this case, there was no edge rusher. The defensive back just simply ran right by Brandon Parker. He was slow to get off. It was not a good rep, and it ruined a drive. That's one instance where I said, nope, can't have that. It makes me believe San Francisco will walk into this year with 9 offensive linemen on the depth chart: Trent Williams, Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel, Spencer Burford, Dominic Pooney, John Feliciano being on the IR leads to players like Jarrett Kingston, Chris Hubbard also making the roster, who I think becomes the backup right tackle in case McKivitz goes down with an injury or struggles mightily to begin the season. Not a great day for backup tackles on San Francisco's roster. Moving on to a mixed bag of 2 players, prior to our final stock up. Mixed bag is Samuel Womack. I do not know what to do with Samuel Womack. I like Samuel Womack. He's a young player. He's a player that I believed had starting nickelback potential. San Francisco didn't really pursue that. He got benched early on, rightfully so, for Deommodore Lenoir in 2021. I'm cool with that. Whatever. Actually, in 2022, excuse me. But okay, fine. Don't love that, but it worked out. Lenoir's a phenomenal player. Womack then goes back to being a special teamer. And in that process of being benched, I think did a great job being a gunner on punt returns. Since then, though, there's been incremental improvement. But now that San Francisco has drafted Bernardo Green, brought in Mooney Ward, also signed Isaac Yiadom, Rocky Sin looks pretty good. Darrell Luter Jr. is now in town. He has, by no fault of his own, moved down the depth chart. There's been no real growth, but he's just kind of buried to a point of, are you actually good enough to keep around? I think he's a really good run defender. I think he had the highest or second highest PFF run grade yesterday. The last couple weeks has made multiple open field tackles. That's great stuff. I think he does provide strength on special teams. I just question his coverage skills and if San Francisco believes in him enough to not keep Chase Lucas around, who has over almost 300 special teams snaps since 2022, eerily similar to the exact same time frame Womack's been in the NFL. I'm not sure. There was some good stuff yesterday, though. He had pretty good coverage on a kind of a comeback or on a bigger receiver, knocked the ball away. It was good stuff. Again, open field tackles, but I'm sure like yourself, I watched Samuel Womack. It looked to be a deep crosser route where he got turned around, didn't show any effort, maybe didn't want to get called for a defensive pass interference, played it hesitant, didn't play the receiver, didn't play the ball, then kind of stands there flat-footed as the receiver catches the ball, turns around, and runs for a touchdown. That will drive any head coach and any defensive coordinator crazy. If there's something you can't do on an NFL roster, and we know how big of a deal Kyle Shanahan likes to point to effort as a reason to either keep or cut players or put them in his doghouse, Samuel Womack's effort on that play would have been zilch, zero, nada. You have, even if you give up the catch, sure, you can point to how you can get better in coverage. At least show me effort in order to get the tackle. Womack didn't do that, didn't finish the play, and ultimately, I wouldn't be surprised if they point to that as a reason why he inevitably gets cut. I don't think he makes the roster, but again, there was some good things. Open field tackles, playing bigger receivers. He has long arms. I think there is a route for him to be the gunner again this year if they don't believe Chase Lucas can actually be a sixth cornerback. But I really don't think Womack showed enough to be the sixth cornerback on this roster. Maybe he's a practice squad player. I can see that route. But even then, I think a player in front of him being Darrell Luter Jr., who, yes, was a mixed bag yesterday, just like Womack was, I think he makes the roster ahead of him. Yesterday, Darrell Luter Jr. was tied for the team lead with 3 pass blocks. That's great stuff from a young player. There was a play in the red zone, 4th down. Raiders are going for it. He gets the interception to kind of keep San Francisco's 3-point lead alive. You have to be able to do that. Bodied up the receiver and kind of made it a non-play for the Raiders offense. Played it nice, got in front of the football, and secured the pick. There also was some plays where there's some quick outs, some stuff towards the sideline where he misses tackles. That's an issue. That could be one of the biggest reasons as to why San Francisco leans towards Lucas, Womack, Rocky Sin to being the 6th cornerback on the depth chart. Even Kyle Shanahan said himself, if you miss tackles, it makes it really hard to make the roster. That is one area I think Darrell Luter Jr. needs to improve upon. But ultimately, if he's your sixth cornerback, he's showing you he has ball skills. He's a bigger bodied defensive back that can play the outside, who you visited with 3+ times before you drafted him. They like him a lot. I'm not sure he would actually make it through waivers, unlike Womack, unlike Chase Lucas. So I would not be surprised if they prefer to keep Luter over Womack, but I think both those players had a mixed bag yesterday, and I'll let you decide which one had the higher stock or the lower stock between the two. I'd pick Luter to have a higher stock right now and Womack to have a much lower stock, but you can tell me down below in the comments. And to our final stock up of the evening, Cameron Latu. We all know how much I did not like the Cam Latu pick. I thought yesterday was his best performance in the entire preseason in the last 2 years. I also think it was his best performance as a receiver. He's had bricks for hands in previous games. He's been inconsistent. Sometimes he has too much popcorn prior to games like Brucey in The Longest Yard, where he's out there and you're just like, why are you looking at your hands, man? Go get to stick them like little giants. Your job's on the line. Show me some desperation. Yesterday, I think he did that. 3 catches, 42 yards, had a 24-yard catch downfield, took a hit, held on to the ball. Again, it was his best game as a wide receiver in the NFL. Yes, it wasn't against starters, but ultimately, if you're fighting for the third or fourth string tight end job, you're not likely going to be playing against them to prove yourself. So I think a really nice day for Cam Latu, but just like everything he does well, there's still some glaring holes in his offensive game. Yesterday, there's a play where they have Isaac Rendo lined up left of the quarterback and Cam Latu lined up right of the quarterback, Brandon Allen. Pretty simple. Once they call hike, if you're not running a route, Grendo blocks left, Cam Latu blocks right. Well, Cam Latu decided to say, you know what? I don't know my left from my right. The ball is snapped. Grendo goes left, takes on a blocker or takes on a defender as a blocker. Cam Latu goes left as well, leaving Brandon Allen's right side completely wide open for a free rusher. You cannot do that. Despite his best receiver game, there are still almost like glitches where he doesn't know the offense. And he's young. I get that. Maybe he is a player that just needs to play more and more to finally get it in his system. People are like that. That's fine. Everybody learns differently, but when you're trying to prove you belong in the NFL or in a Kyle Shanahan offense, as a backup, you usually don't get the opportunity very often, where you miss all of last year because you tore your meniscus, I believe, and you hurt your knee. You finally just practiced this offseason, finally back in the preseason games, and struggled pretty bad against the Titans, was okay against the Saints, and was having a really good game against the Raiders. Then the missed block happens. You're like, oh, Cam, like, I'm not sure if you're better right now than Braden Willis or a Jake Tunges. I'm just not sure. Now, does your third round draft status save your job? Probably does. But there's a roller coaster ride that I would not be shocked if Kyle Shanahan is not willing to jump on. That is Cam Latu. There's really good stuff. There's the ability to be a receiver, the bigger frame. He has the body to be an NFL level tight end, to be an actual, factor in a game plan, to be a red zone target. You're 6'5", 245, man. That plays in the NFL. I just don't know what the missing link is to have it click for Cam Latu. Sometimes it takes players a while. Curtis Robinson, taking them 3 or 4 years. He's finally starting to click. I don't know if that's the route you take with Cam Latu. Do you want to keep him around for a long time? The way he's played, I'm not really sure a team would want to bring him in off waivers. But I also don't know if he would actually make it to the practice squad. So if they still believe in him, which I'm not sure they do, this game certainly gives you more to believe in than others. Maybe Cam Latu makes the roster as a fourth tight end, emergency, hey, get out there. He's a bigger body guy, but there just seems to be lapses in his game that I think will make Kyle Shanahan blow a gasket. He has been yelled at during practices multiple times. That's not a good look, but this was his best game so far. And the stock may not be, jumping out of the ceiling for him, but ultimately it was a pretty solid day. 3 catches, 42 yards, a 24-yard catch downfield. The hands were as consistent as they've been his entire career so far, which has been 2 seasons or a season and a half of play. So a overall stock up for Cam Latu, but I would be remiss if I did not talk about Danny Gray. Danny Gray is on track to become the next third round bust. And I feel terrible for Danny Gray. I think Danny Gray had the skill set to become the deep threat in this offense. I firmly believe that Danny Gray could have been something special. I know Kyle Shanahan envisioned Danny Gray being a mainstay in the offense. I think he believed that, if we can get this guy in here, we are going to be able to utilize him as the deep threat. He'll be great with Trey Lance. Unfortunately, Trey Lance is gone. Unfortunately, there really isn't room for Danny Gray to a point where he didn't even play yesterday. You're going into year 3. 2022, wasted year. Quarterbacks are going down left and right. He wasn't good enough to play. 2023, an injury occurs during training camp and preseason. He's out for the year. Do they use the exact same route they did last year to maybe keep him on the team? Do they put on IR and say, you know what, we like your skill set. You need more time to grow. You're not actually injured, severely, but you're injured enough to warrant putting you on IR, keeping you on the roster. But it feels like we are coming to the end of the Danny Gray experience. Unfortunately, he never got started. It's another third-round pick bust with the likes of Trey Sermon, Ty Davis-Price, now Danny Gray. Not a good look for the Niners, and that depth chart is Deebo Samuel, Brandon Aiyuk, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Chris Conley, who has looked really good the entirety of training camp and preseason, and Jacob Cowing, who has looked phenomenal into preseason games. There just isn't enough room, and he doesn't even provide you with the special team flexibility that Ronnie Bell gives you or Trent Taylor gives you for a lack of playmaking ability. He can at least catch the football. Danny Gray, unfortunately, provides you nothing. And ultimately, I think is going to find his way into being cut, or at least if they want to keep him on the roster as another injured reserve season-ending stint for him, where next year it's make or break Danny Gray, which this year already was that for him. And if you point to one player that needed the biggest training camp and preseason of them all, it was Danny Gray. And he may have had one of the worst preseasons of them all. Not a great look. That does it for Stock Up, Stock Down, the final 2024 preseason edition. I want to kindly ask you to follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. If you want to go to a Niner game this year, use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49 ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. And if you're like myself and you hate scrounging the web looking for every little bit of Niner news from every different website out there, go to sportspider.com or hit that link down below in the description. it'll take you to sportspider.com, where they collect the latest articles, podcast, and news pieces of your favorite teams organized by the Jets, the Raiders, and the San Francisco 49ers. It is the easiest and best place to find the latest news, articles, and podcasts, just like the one you're watching and listening to right now about your favorite team. So go to sportspider.com or hit the description or link in the description down below. With that said, my name is Sterling Bennett. Hope you enjoy your weekend and stay tuned for our 2024 roster prediction coming out before Tuesday's cut down day. You're not going to want to miss that. We'll dive into every single position. I'll give you my reasoning behind who I picked to stay and who I picked to go. And as always, until next time, stay faithful.